This verse is often used out of context. It says, "For if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful expectation of judgment and fire indignation, which will devour the adversaries." Now, what is being said here? Look at the first line. For if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth. So who is being spoken to here? This is addressing the Jewish people who do animal sacrifices. So this is regarding if they reject the sacrifice of the Lord Jesus, there will no longer remains a sacrifice for other sins, such as there no longer remains animal sacrifices for sins. They don't do anything. So if you willfully sin after you have received the knowledge of the truth, which is the gospel, the good news about Jesus, if you reject that and just commit your animal sacrifices, that will not be a sacrifice for sins. Let's look in context. Let's go to Hebrews 10:26. So here we are, right there. This is the Strong's and Concordance Bible app. You can actually do this and you'll see these numbers after words, and it'll actually give you in the Old Testament it'll give you the Hebrew, in the New Testament it'll give you the Greek, and then the translation, the pronunciation, and the definition of what all these words mean and are used for in the Bible. So let's go to 26. Let me turn this off first so it's more compressed and less confusing. So here's that verse 26. So here we start seeing the context. So let's read 1 through 4. For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never, with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually, make the comers thereunto perfect. Verse 2. For then would they not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshippers once purged should have had no more conscience of sins. But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. Verse 4. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. Verse 5. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, Sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. Verse 6. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure. So, looking at these verses, we know what is being discussed here. It's about the topic at hand is sins are not absolved or covered by animal sacrifices every year. Only the sin or sacrifice of Jesus will cover all sins. So, back in 26, sin willfully, verse 26, for if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth, it doesn't say after you received salvation. Knowledge of the truth does not mean anyone receives salvation. When people go street preaching and share the gospel with people, sharing the knowledge of the truth, they aren't saved automatically. That's not how this works. People have to accept the Lord Jesus and then receive salvation. But verse 26 is not saying anything about receiving salvation and then sinning willfully after that. It's talking about receiving the knowledge of truth, which is what is covered in this chapter as well as the Gospels, about receiving salvation and that Jesus is that sacrifice. That is the knowledge. If you accept Jesus as a sacrifice, then you become saved. But just receiving the knowledge of truth does not make someone saved. Continuing to verse 7 to 10. Then I Said I, Lo, I come. In the volume of the book it is written of me, to do thy will, O God. Verse 8. Above, when he said, Sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering for sin thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. Verse 9. Then said he, Lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second. Verse 10, very important verse, by which we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus once and for all. So this is the knowledge of truth. We are sanctified through the offering, the new sacrifice, the only sacrifice that matters, not animal sacrifices, but the body of Jesus Christ, once and for all. By which we are sanctified through the offering. Sanctified. Not the knowledge of truth, not knowing the knowledge of truth, but by believing and accepting that Jesus Christ is the offering, that he is the sacrifice, as opposed to the Jews who would continue to commit the animal offerings for sacrifice, rejecting the knowledge of truth, of what Jesus is and has done. Again, look at the word, sanctified, sanctified. It doesn't say knowledge of truth. There's a difference between knowing the knowledge of truth and being sanctified of those who accept it. Again, now look, verse 11, another very important verse. And every priest standeth daily ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. So again, this is very simple. If you read in context, you can't just take verse 26 out of context. Look at the whole chapter, the chapter before, the chapter after. What is being said here? This is being spoken to the priests and the Jews who do not accept the knowledge of truth. They do not accept Jesus' sacrifice. Again, a very important verse, verse 12. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins, forever, like forever, right there, sat down on the right hand of God. Verse 13. From henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. Verse 14, for by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. Did you see that? Very important verse. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. Them that are sanctified. Not those who know the knowledge, but those who are sanctified.